This is Amy Alexander, and this is a presentation on employment law in Germany. This presentation was developed for an assignment in my employment law class. This slideshow was created in partnership with another classmate. I have included my sections of the presentation only to demonstrate my individual presentation abilities. We originally presented our entire slideshow in class, but I have re-recorded my portion of the presentation for the purpose of this portfolio. To get an idea of a personal perspective on working in Germany, I interviewed an elementary school teacher of mine who had taught in Germany in the 1960s. She made some of the following statements about working in Germany at the time. I felt that the school was very authoritarian. We had to follow rules to the letter. I got more money than an American teacher for the same work because I had a master's degree and she didn't, so I assumed that the more education you had, the better the pay. Everyone had church tax deducted from their salary. I don't think I would like to have taught there for the long haul. It wasn't exactly a fun place to work. I always felt that Big Brother was watching. As we will see, the church tax that my teacher mentioned still continues today. To start, let's look at the concept of at-will employment. At-will employment does not exist in Germany. Employment is primarily governed by contracts. A written summary of the position is generally required, though the entire contract does not have to be in writing. Contracts may be for an unlimited or fixed amount of time, but unlimited is the most typical. If a limited or fixed-term contract is permitted, then, quote, the duration of fixed-term contracts must be set according to objective conditions such as a specific end date, the completion of a specific task, or the occurrence of a specific event. End quote. Two acts in particular protect German workers. First is the Protection Against Dismissal Act, which sets certain conditions that must be met for an employee to be dismissed. There is no protection in the first 6 months of work, but after that, dismissal can generally occur only for health reasons, conduct of the employee, or redundancy of the position. The labor courts handle appeals of dismissals. Unfortunately, despite this protection, it is somewhat common for dismissals to occur due to the restructuring of companies. We also have the Act on Part-Time Work. This act provides, in part, quote, employers must enable employees, including those at managerial level, to switch from full-time to part-time work. End quote. The Act specifies that fixed-term contract employees should be treated equally with permanent employees, and that employers are supposed to let fixed-term employees know about training opportunities and full-time positions available within the company. Next, let's look at the types of family medical leave available to German workers. There are 4 main types of family medical leave. First is pregnancy and maternity leave. Mothers get 6 weeks before and 8 weeks after the birth of a child with full payment. If the baby is premature, this leave gets extended. Germany also allows child-raising leave, also called parental leave or Elternzeit. Either parent can take the leave, and it can be taken intermittently until the child is 3 years old. I found conflicting information about whether this leave is paid or unpaid. The Family Care Leave Act was enacted in 2012. This act provides that employees can reduce their working hours to 15 hours per week in order to care for sick family members for up to 24 months. They seem to be able to get supplemental income from some type of loan. During this time, the employees are protected against dismissal. There is also some leave for personal emergencies. Workers can generally get 6 weeks of paid sick leave, as well as leave to deal with personal emergencies, such as the death of a family member. Finally, let's examine the impact of Germany's culture and history on its employment law. Germany has had a history of unrest and division, which many of us are familiar with. The country was defeated in World War I and had to pay reparations. In 1933, Adolf Hitler took over Germany, and his totalitarian rule and implementation of the Holocaust left a scar on Germany's history. East and West Germany were divided, and the Berlin Wall didn't come down until 1989. Although there is no explicit relationship between these events and current employment law, I find this difficult history interesting when compared with Germany's structured employment laws and its many protections for the average worker. In Germany, churches play an intriguing role in the taxation of wages. Germany today is mostly Protestant, Roman Catholic, or unaffiliated. The church tax my former teacher mentioned continues today. The tax rate is approximately 8 to 9% of the income tax rate. One source I found said a person was paying 4% of their salary in church tax. Recently, Marketplace.org did a story on German Christians leaving their church affiliations so they could avoid having to pay the tax, because you can opt out if you are unaffiliated. Another story talked about the Catholic Church denying the sacraments, such as communion, to members who had opted out of the tax. German society in general seems highly structured. An interesting example is the German school system. At age 10, German school children pick a study track which leads to specialized schooling and eventually a career. Again, this structure seems reflected in the many structured provisions of German employment law. Finally, Germany has works councils which are very involved in German companies. Works councils are similar to unions in the US, but they actually play a role in product quality assurance and are on a supervisory board. I read one article that claimed many American companies with German divisions have felt that the works councils had too much influence in the company. The Works Constitution Act, established in 1972, gives eligible companies the right for the workers to elect works councils, who then, quote, work with the employer to promote the good of the employees and the business, end quote. Like unions, works councils can regulate working hours, wage structure, and vocational training. Again, demonstrating Germany's prioritization of the average worker as opposed to a top-down management style, the Works Constitution Act provides, quote, the employer and the Works Council shall work together in a spirit of mutual trust, having regard to the applicable collective agreements, and in cooperation with the trade unions and employers' associations represented in the establishment for the good of the employees and of the establishment, end quote. In summary, German employment law provides many protections for both permanent and fixed-term employees. These protections include a requirement of a written summary of the position, extra protections for fixed-term workers, several types of family leave, and the strong presence of works councils. Thank you very much.